good, fellas? Welcome to this presentation. This is Trey. The topic for today is how to discover your purpose. Now, we're supposed to have a special guest on who specializes in. Oh, there we go. All right, bro.
Hey,
What's up, bro?
good morning.
Good evening.
Oh, evening there, yeah. What's happening?
I'm feeling good, bro. How you feeling?
Yeah, let's get stuck into it. I'm pretty pumped to share with the guys because last time we got a little bit of sound feedback that wasn't too good.
Yeah.
So this time we can actually do a proper presentation without me sounding like a robot.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yo, you froze up, bro. Where'd you go? You're frozen, man. uh, what's going on, brother? You done froze up on me. If I could. Uh, I'm gonna try to bring you back on, bro, because you froze up. Just in case you're watching this and you're wondering what the hell is going on. So, we're gonna be talking about how to discover your purpose. I'm trying to get our special guests on. All right, bro. Good. Yo,
Sweet.
so did you like getting up, or did you like start your morning routine and everything already?
Yeah.
You don't started your morning routine and everything already?
Yeah, man, already ready to rock.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, bro. So, fellas, welcome to this presentation. The topic for today is how to discover your purpose. We have a special guest on who specializes in helping people discover their purpose. So, brother, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you're all about?
Hey everyone, so my name is Dobreskovic and I help people discover their purpose and create a plan and a pathway to go out and fulfill what they would love to do in the world and make a difference ultimately, because we're all here to make a difference.
No doubt, bro. So, I think this time, bro, we'll kind of just get right into it. We're not even gonna beat around the bush. So, how can someone who is lost right now, they feel like they don't know what their purpose is. They're kind of trying to figure out what should I be doing with my life, right? What advice would you give this person who's trying to find their purpose, trying to find what they should be doing with their time on this planet?
Okay, so where do I start? So what I'd start with is I'll ask you a question first. So would you agree that when we're born into the world, we're told, as soon as we learn to walk and talk, we're told to sit down and shut up?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where all the social and cultural programming begins about how we should be working, our limitations on what we should be, what we're allowed to learn or understand, or all these different areas of life. I've put down 8 areas of life. Some people have put down, writers and philosophers have said 7, some have said 12. So there's 8 main areas of life, being spiritual, mental, vocational, which is your career, your part, like your working path, what you do to earn a living. Then finances, how you handle your finances. Then there's social. Then there's familial, physical, and sexual. So there's these 8 areas of life. And so whatever stories, whatever we perceive happened in each one of those areas, our highest moments and our lowest moments, those are basically experiences. They run us internally and run our perceptions. So what does this actually mean? So a perfect example of this is, say you get into a relationship with a woman and she's displaying some of these same traits and characteristics as you've seen in a woman in the past. What she'll do is she'll trigger you emotionally and you'll react emotionally in the same ways. And so from the ages of 0 to 8, we construct 85% of our neural pathways in our brain. So by the time we're 8 years old, we have constructed 85% of the concepts of our reality, or our personal reality, also known as our personality. And so these become hardwired into us by the time we're 8, right? And so the significance of this is that when we get older and we get triggered emotionally, we revert back to cellular memory and we behave like an 8-year-old, because these are the concepts that we've built our whole life on. And so our past, our future is basically our past is folding in on top of itself. That's why we go through the same emotional cycles, the same experiences, until we start to do the inner work, until we start to reflect, we start to go within, and we start to get clear on each of what we actually truly want these areas to look. So if someone's struggling with their purpose, what they need to do is they need to shift that, what I call your dominating internal dialogue. So whatever the dialogue is there, because like, let's say if we try to say talk about your purpose, right? The thoughts, feelings, languages that you use now has created your current reality, and your purpose exists outside that sphere. Otherwise, you would have been already living it. You would have been already fulfilling it. But if we're trying to talk about it, we're talking it from the language of the past, right? So to give you an understanding how this happens on a neurological level, if I said to you, do you know what a ruel is?
What, overwhelm?
Do you know what a ruel is?
No, no.
So a ruel is the space between your bed and the wall. Okay. Now, when I said that to you and told that to you, what would have happened is, in your mind, you would have gone to your bed in your past, or your current reality, or in your past, and you would have seen that from a point of all the memories and experiences of your past. So whenever we cannot create a new future based on the same experiences, memories, and emotions from the past. So we have to shift what we perceived had happened back then. And it usually comes down to one particular experience that we've had. And when we shift that, we can completely see the blessing in the crisis. We can see how that has served us, instead of all the stories about how this is bad and wrong and life's hard and why me. And we can start to actually, from there, tapping into the heart, man. That's the secret. Ultimately, tapping into gratitude, tapping into the heart, and opening up. Because if we try to analyze it with our mind and we try to, figure it out up here, we're going to start, we're going to overwhelm ourselves. We're going to try to analyze the shit out of what our purpose is. And that's what I did for so many years, man. And one of the things that changed the game for me was when I realized how to tap into the heart, because the heart is the most powerful organ in the human body. It's 10 times more powerful than the brain. It produces what's called an electromagnetic field that goes to about 6 feet around us. So if you put your hands out fully stretched to the end of your fingertips, that's the actual edge of your electromagnetic field, and that connects to the quantum field. And so our heart is where, that's where there's the heart has its own mini brain, has about 40,000 neurons. And so when we're tapped into that and we're tuned with that, that harmonizes the rest of the cells and the tissues in the body and creates order and coherence and balance within the body. And we are then centered. And when we have that, we're not in kind of the animal brain, and the animal brain is seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. The animal brain is the part of us that is, you know, goes for the food and avoids any challenge. It wants the comfortable path. It wants the path of least resistance. And 99.9% of people are living from that space. They're avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. But when you tap into the frontal cortex, when you open your heart and you become balanced, you become present. The brain goes from survival mode, because it can only operate from two spaces: survival or creation mode. And when you're in survival, you can't create. But when you're in creation, there's no need to survive, right? And so you activate the prefrontal cortex, the executive center of the brain, and that's where you get an inspired vision. You have self-governance, you have creativity, you have your inner leader, your authentic expression comes through. And that's where you have, you know, your purpose becomes alive when you're operating from that space. But as soon as we go back to our emotional reactions and we're blaming the outside world or pointing to the outside world as why we're not moving, that's when we get then caught up in addictive stimulators. Now, addictive stimulators can come in any form. They can come from, you know, drugs, alcohol, entertainment, watching sports, shopping, gambling, consumerism, and so sugar and coffee. And so these things are what people need as an external source of a short-term quick fix, which give the brain a quick dopamine hit. And dopamine is the reward center of the brain. And when you continually get this dopamine kick, you become addicted to that short-term quick fix. And what happens is you use that to make up for the unfulfillment in your life, for not having clear purpose and dedicating yourself to a long-term vision. You get caught up in short-term thinking, like, oh, how am I going to get, you know, getting the next paycheck, getting the next girl, getting the next client in your business, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? You get caught up in the short-term quick fix as opposed to the long-term vision, and having a long-term vision that you're willing to dedicate your life to. So that's when you know you've got a clear purpose, is when it's something that, you know, it's bigger than your lifetime. It's bigger than you. And it's something that's connected to your heart and soul. It's something that also, you know, when you've found your purpose, it's like you've created something original that's not like anything else in the world. You know, have you ever looked at someone else and go, oh, they're really living their purpose, they're doing something cool in the world, like, I'm going to kind of do their thing but change a little bit. Like, when you are really clear on your purpose, you become a trailblazer, you become a original thinker. And if we look at anyone that we do look up to in the world and we see that in them, we also, all influential people who have made a mark on history, who have made a difference in the world, all millionaires, billionaires, they all have one thing in common. Do you know what that is?
Clarity on their purpose.
They have a clear purpose. They know exactly why they're here. And they won't let anything on the outside distract them from what's truly meaningful on the inside.
So my question to you would be, when it comes to getting clarity on your purpose, is this something that can be done quickly, or is it like, does it take like some time, or does it depend on the person, or what would you say?
I love this question, because it's not about how quickly, like something, so your purpose is something you refine over your life as well. So when I first have a document called my statement of purpose, and in that I have every single area of my life, what I'm doing now, what I want it to look like in the future, what I'll receive, who I need to be. Like, it's very, very detailed. It takes me about 12 minutes to read each morning, and I edit that, I refine it every day just about. Some days I won't refine it, but this is something I created about 6 years ago, and I've been working it for about 6 years now, and I'll continue to have that. So every single, they say that I heard in, I can't remember what article it was, but it was Forbes or one of those types of things, and it was like billionaires read their mission statement 5 to 10 times more per day than millionaires. And so when you're clear on your purpose, when you know what it is, you're not concerned with getting it figured out like now. It's like it's something you're refining over time, something you're constantly dialing into, you're constantly tuning into, you're refining it, you're reviewing it, you're reliving it, and you're expanding it, because a human being will never outgrow their vision.
So, what would be an example of a purpose? Like, what is like, is it like kind of like okay, my purpose is to help a certain amount of people achieve a certain thing, or is it like, what would be an example of a purpose? Or some examples.
So example, so whatever we perceive, okay, I've got to go off on a bit of a tangent on this, right? So whatever we perceive as most missing, so every human being has a scale of purpose, things that are most important to them and things that are least important to them. Things that are high priority. Would you agree in your life there are things that are high priority to do in your life, and there are things that aren't very high priority in your life?
Yeah.
So every single human being has this scale of purpose. Now, some people have called this the value structure or the hierarchy of values. So whatever's highest on your scale of purpose, that's the thing that inspires you most. The Greeks created a whole study on this called the study of teleology, which was the study of meaning and purpose. And the thing that's highest on your scale of purpose is what's called your telos. And that's where the word entelechy creates the word telos, and entelechy is what means where we get the word intelligence from. So a single-celled organism has the lowest form of intelligence because it's wanting to survive. That's all it wants to do. It's seeking food, avoiding prey, seeking prey, avoiding predator. And so it has the lowest form of intelligence. Now, those who have perceived the most, greatest intelligence are the one with the greatest time and space horizons. So the level of your purpose and the clarity of your purpose dependent on how clear you are on your purpose is dependent on the space and time horizons within that. And so some people's purpose is like to get through the week, get by, right? That's their purpose in that moment. Like that's what they're focusing on. But as human beings, we have the opportunity and the capacity to expand our consciousness and our awareness and expand our space and time horizons. Now, if we look at the, again, coming back to the scale of purpose and human values, now, whatever we perceive as missing in our life, whatever we perceive as most missing in our life, we have a higher value to fulfill. And if you look at, to give an example, is like doctors, nurses, carers, or healers, they perceive that there was a lack of care in their life. So that was in their childhood. And so whatever we perceive growing up, we have a higher value to go and fulfill later on in life. Judges, police, and lawyers, they have a perception that there was a lack of justice done in their life, so they will want to go and fulfill justice in their life, and so they have a high value on fulfilling that. You with me? So whatever we perceive was most missing, the voids in our life, we have a high value to fulfill. So most of the guys in this group, what we've been through is we perceive there was a lack of maybe a lack of nurturing growing up, or a lack of affection, or a lack of intimacy, or something missing in our life that we then have a high value to go and fulfill later on in life. Right? And so our voids and our values are actually coded into our DNA at the point of conception from our parents. Whatever our parents perceived. Would you agree? Like, you have brothers, if you have brothers and sisters, you realize that they're completely different, but they come from the exact same two people. It's because our values are encoded into our DNA from that moment of conception, whatever our parents perceived, whatever their voids and values were, and it's called DNA tagging. And then so as we go throughout our life, our values are being shaped by our environment, right? And we have a clear set of values by the time we're about 8 years old. That's when they're solidified, and they shift throughout our life. But that telos, which means the end in mind, which is what intelligence also, the definition is having some end in mind. Our telos is always present, and it's actually what governs our behavior. So any action we take, whether any experience we've had in our past, whether good or bad, has been directly linked to our telos, as whatever we perceive is the most advantage over disadvantage, most reward over risk, most gain over loss to our telos, or our highest purpose. So it's always present, but we get clouded by the judgments and the opinions and the voices on the outside, and we lose touch with the voice on the inside. So when we're clear on the voice on the inside, and the opinions and the judgments of other people on the outside start to, I guess, quieten down, and we're not listening into them, we're listening more into ourselves. That's when we begin to master what our purpose truly is.
So is our purpose something we choose, or is it something already written before we're even born?
Yeah, exactly. It's written into us, it's encoded into us before we're even born. And so it's, again, coming back to whatever we perceive was missing. So when we go throughout our life, like I was saying, and every single action we take, so when something aligns with our telos, our highest purpose, there's a part in the brain now we know it's called the telencephalon, and then we have the most retention of information, we have the most intention, and we have the most attention. So we'll remember anything we remember in our consciousness, any story, any quote, any experience, any memory is aligned to our telos, our what the Greeks called, well, that was what they called purpose. Then we'll have the most intention. So we'll move our central nervous system, our body and our muscles to fulfill that purpose. And then finally, we have the most attention. So we have the most concentration, the most focus, the most order and organization to go and fulfill that. Now, let's use an example of a little boy who's been told that he's got ADD at school and he won't concentrate, he's been labeled ADD. Now, when he goes home and he plays his video game, he's sitting there for 6 hours straight. He's memorized the game. He knows each character. He knows everything about that thing because that's aligned to whatever's inspiring him at that time. That's aligned to his purpose in some way. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it, right? So he has what's called attention surplus order. Now, if I started talking to you, or if the girl that you're seeing started talking to you about makeup and what the makeup does and you'd probably have attention deficit disorder. But if she started talking to you about, something deep like philosophy, or she started talking to you about psychology or something that you were interested in, you would then have attention surplus order. You'd be focused. Your ears would prick up. You'd be like fully engaged. You'd be there. And so this is the secret, as well as in terms of communicating with other human beings, as well as understanding what lights them up and understanding like how to have a conversation where you can communicate what's most meaningful to you in terms of what's most meaningful to them. And when you get to that point, you get out of what's called a monologue, mono meaning one, and you get into a dialogue, di meaning two. And so this is why most relationships they break down, because people are not appreciating each other because they're not seen as, they're not seen in their, as they don't get to feel like they're feeling what's most truly and meaningful to them and their values. So one thing that there's two things that every single human being across the planet have in common. No matter what your race, color, creed, no matter what your religion, your gender, we all want to be loved and appreciated for who we truly are. At the end of the day, that's what we truly want in our hearts, and we all want to make a difference. And this is actually called a biological imperative. So every single species has a biological imperative to survive, but because human beings, we have this ability to reflect and to have foresight, our biological imperative is to leave this world a better place than when we showed up here. Now, we've all been conditioned socially and culturally to play small, to be cogs in the system, to not go out and truly follow our purpose. So what happens is, somewhere along the line, we stop listening to that voice, we stop following those, the higher order of our, on our scale of purpose, and we start trying to inject these other people's purpose into our life. And so what happens then is we start to think that we start to beat ourselves up because we're procrastinating or we're hesitating on doing these things that aren't truly important to us. And we're getting distracted by what it is our purpose truly is. But we keep comparing ourselves to other people. So we're trying to be like someone we're not. And so we set goals that aren't congruent with our purpose. And when we don't fulfill them, we beat ourselves up and we ridicule ourselves. And we end up self-sabotaging. And that's because we haven't honored and we haven't owned what our true, authentic purpose is. And we keep disowning that, and we keep focusing on these lower end of like priorities, thinking that that's what's going to fulfill us. And this creates so much confusion and so much, I guess, despair, and it creates so much confusion, and people feel lost, they feel stagnant, they feel stuck, they don't know what the next step is because they're not truly owning that telos. And when you're in your telos and you're living your telos and you're living your purpose, that's where you're most creative, your inner genius comes online, your inner leader, your true authentic expression comes out, and we have clarity on where we're going. But when we're trying to inject the values of other people around us, we become confused, we become lost, we hesitate, we frustrate, we're disorganized, we disown that part, but we beat ourselves up comparatively because we think we should be living in someone else's values. Whenever you hear someone say, oh, I think I should be doing this, or I must be doing this, or I have to do this thing, you can tell then, even if you catch yourself saying that, you're injecting someone else's values and someone else's purpose into your life. But when you're saying, I'd love to do this, that's when you know it's something aligned to your purpose. So just to quickly cap that off is, so whenever we look up to someone, we subconsciously and simultaneously inject their purpose into our life and beat ourselves up because we're not living what they are. Yeah. So we put themselves up on a pedestal and we put ourselves in a pit, and we then beat ourselves up and we slam ourselves and we ridicule ourselves. So this is what actually causes depression. Now, if we have an unrealistic expectation in our life, we have an elated fantasy, because you can't have depression without elation. We will then wake up in the morning and we'll compare our lives to this unrealistic expectation, right? And we'll beat ourselves up, we'll ridicule ourselves, we'll slam ourselves, we'll criticize ourselves, and we'll judge ourselves compared to this unrealistic expectation. And so what this does is, and that causes depression. Like, we now know that in terms of human perception, that's what causes it. And so to give you an understanding, I was speaking with my brother, and he said, oh, bro, I've been experiencing a little bit of depression. And I said, okay. I said, oh, it's just a label. Like 20 years ago, people were sad and stressed, but now they've put a clinical term on it. Now you're depressed and anxious, and you have to have a pill. And there's antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills now, right? Because they couldn't call it anti-sadness and anti-stress pills, because that just wouldn't make sense. We're human beings. And so what people then do is they get attached to that label, and it becomes part of their identity. And I go to my brother, I said, okay, tell me what's going on. What kind of, like, you can't have depression without an elation. What fantasy do you have? He goes, every single week I go out and buy the lottery ticket, and I come home and I talk with my wife about what we're going to spend it on. And I said, I bet you the next day you feel depressed when you realize you don't. And that was his cycle. Every single week he would get to this point, you know, lottery, payday, or whatever. He would be all elated and excited, and he'd just start mindlessly spending his money. And then end of the week comes around, he's depressed. Oh, I've got to do this job that I don't like. You know, barely getting by. I've got no money for bills, and I'm struggling. I'll get this lottery ticket. Oh yeah, I'm gonna win millions of dollars. This unrealistic expectation, right? And then they go through the same cycles. So that just gives you an understanding on that.
Yeah. Nah, I appreciate you, bro. So let's say I'm gonna have to watch this again because like you really, one thing I like about you is you really go into detail so somebody could really understand what you're saying. But the thing is with me, like I'm like kind of, I just want to know like 1, 2, 3, what do I do, right? So is there a way to break it down in like a simplified, like let's say someone's watching this, they're not, maybe some of the language you're using or whatever is not connecting or whatever.
Yeah.
Like what would be the simplified way
so
somebody could?
All right, so this is why I created the purpose activation system. All right, so it's a 3-part system, and step 1, we go through what I call the identify and dissolve method. So we identify the subconscious programs, limitations that are holding you back from taking your life to the next level, and we completely dissolve them. All right, and step number 2, we then go through and create your statement of purpose. So we define what your purpose truly is, and we bypass the analytical mind by using a process that I created, where we bypass the analytical mind that just wants to figure it all out and have it all written out, and we bypass that so we can create your statement of purpose, which is something that's real and authentic to you. And then the 3rd step is we go through what I call the master plan and pathway, where we start to map out a pathway to get you from where you are now to where you want to be in the most effective and efficient way possible. So you have the actual steps to go from, all right, where I am now to actually go out and fulfill your purpose. Now, a lot of programs out there in the online space, they just teach you someone else's strategy. They teach you someone else's plan. Do my 1, 2, 3 plan, A, B, C. But they don't actually get you clear on what it is your purpose is. This is why I created this, because I've done like a lot of online courses in the past, and they just said, here's our strategy, here's our thing, which is all just left brain strategy. But purpose is connected to right brain. Purpose is connected to the emotive part of you. And the emotive part of you is what pulls you through. Like when you're clear on your purpose, your pleasure or pain, like you embrace both sides of life. Would you agree? There's events in your life that are challenging, and then events in your life that are supportive. There's events in our life that we perceive as good, and events that we perceive as bad. And so we embrace both sides of life in the fulfillment of our purpose. But when we're caught up and we're not clear on that, when we go out and we'll do something, and then when it gets too hard, we'll give up. So if anything that you've had a long-term, I guess you've had long-term results with, or something you've been showing up with, and you've been reliable, you've been disciplined, you've been focused, like you, for instance, Trey, like showing up every day and speaking and sharing value and wisdom, you know for certain that's part of your purpose. Otherwise, you would have given up when it got hard. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's observing also in our life. So the first step, like I said, is really clearing out all the subconscious limitations. Like to go and say, oh, I'm going to get clear on my purpose now from the same thoughts, feelings, and emotions that have created the reality that you're in. You're literally, like, we're doing it backwards. The first place is to get clear on, is identify and dissolve all those subconscious limitations around, how you perceive your unique idea of spirituality. So most people, right, aren't clear on that, and they'll let some dogma, right, tell them what they should be doing, or some sort of moral, ethical dogma to tell them what they should believe in. Now, if we aren't clear on what our purpose is in terms of our mental life, our intellectual pursuits, we'll be told what to think. If we aren't clear on our vocational life, our fear, like we have a fear of, you know, oh, I want to go and do this thing or step into this or do that, we'll be told what to do. If we aren't clear on our financial life, what we want to achieve in that area, we will be told what we're worth. Same if in socially, we'll fear getting rejected and not being accepted if we have these subconscious limitations and programs running us. In our family, we'll fear that if we go out and pursue what we truly would love to do, we fear that we'd lose love from our family, or we perceive that we're not attractive enough if we're not clear on how our physical self, our physical being, is helping us fulfill our purpose. We're not clear on those different areas of life. If, for instance, if we're not clear on our intent when we approach a woman, right, and we're not clear and we're not certain within ourselves, our fear as a man will be that we'll be perceived as a creep or a weirdo, right? And so every single area of life, if we're not certain in what it is that we want to fulfill, then we're run by those subconscious limitations and programs, then we can't get clear on our purpose, because we'll be using that as a filter to try and get clear on what it is we're truly here to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So
I know you wanted the easy short answer.
I have to rewatch this, bro. What would you say in when you say fulfill your purpose? What exactly do you mean? This is my last question. What exactly do you mean when you say fulfill your purpose? What does that mean?
So, do what truly inspires you.
So, is it fulfill? Like, how do you fulfill it? Is it just like a thing that never ends, or is there like an end result?
So, all right. So, let me give you an example. So the average person, like right now in the world, like, so let's use a factory worker for example. Like, he'll live day to day, then his supervisor will live week to week, then and he'll think in terms of a week, and then his manager might think in terms of a year, then the upper management might think in terms of a decade, then the CEO might think in terms of a century, right? And the sage will then think in terms of a millennium, and the soul thinks in terms of eternity. So the clarity of your purpose, right? Time is not part of the equation when we're looking at what our actual true purpose here is. Like, there's no time limit on it. Like, it will outlive us. There's a story. Giordano Bruno, his name is. He was a philosopher, a mathematician in the would have been the 15th, 16th century, and he said back then, it was quite controversial. He said, where we live in an infinite universe with infinite worlds and infinite beings, which we now somewhat is true. But back then, the church ruled, and they said, all right, we're gonna basically burn you at the stake unless you take back what you said, and you'll be locked into prison. And he stuck by what he believed in, and so the torchbearer was about to burn him, you know, put the flame down to him, and Giordano Bruno turned to this guy and he said, my fear of receiving that flame is less than yours. Yours is greater. Your fear is greater than for lighting this flame. Your fear is greater than mine is in receiving it. Because once you set me alight, you will set out my immortal vision and my immortal message. And today he's celebrated in Rome, in the exact same square that he was burnt down to the ground. And he actually created what's called a post-life biography, where he wrote how he would be perceived 300, 400, 500 years into the future. And this is something that I've done in the work that I've done, is like, how do I want to be perceived and I set out a purpose for 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years beyond my life. So again, it comes back to the space and time horizons of your innermost dominating thought. Now, look at, for instance, we'll use Elon Musk for an example. The reason why he's attracted all these things into his life is because he has a long-term vision. He wants to make human beings interplanetary, and people are willing to jump on board with him because he has a long-term vision. People are willing to support. So if we try and take the easy and the comfortable road, we'll attract challenge, and we will attract difficult situations into our life to help us grow, because that's the way nature is designed. The tree grows to the sun and into the earth. We're designed to grow. So if we're tracing support and comfort and ease, we'll naturally attract events and circumstances into our life to help us grow. Now, if we go out and we fulfill challenging and difficult situations and difficult problems in the world, we'll naturally attract support and ease, and people want to be part of what we're doing in the world. And so if you're truly clear on your purpose, time is not you're not governed by the clock. You're governed by, all right, this is my life. You're governed by, what am I dedicating my life to, and how can I continue to immortalize myself? Because every single human being, they want to immortalize themselves. They want their idea. They want part of their, spirituality. Let's use that as an example. In terms of our spirit, we have a yearning for our spirit to live on in some way, shape, or form. This is the basis of all religions. Then, in our mental life, and our intellectual pursuits, we want our ideas to outlive our physical form, right? And also in our finances, we want us to have more money at the end of our life than have more life at the end of our money. We also have a yearning in terms of physically living on by passing on our DNA and having children. We have a yearning within us to do that as well. So every single area of life, socially, we want our ideas to be socially accepted and passed on throughout generations after we've gone. So there's a part of us that's there's an immortal part of us as human beings, and that's who we truly are. But we get caught up in this mortal existence, and we get caught up on everything on the outside. But when you get in tune and you realize that, for instance, when at the moment of the Big Bang, all the energy in the universe is the same amount of energy that exists in the universe right now. Did you know that?
Yeah. Can you say that again?
But did you know that all the energy that existed at the moment of the Big Bang is the same amount of energy that exists right now?
Yeah, I have. I didn't know you believe in the Big Bang, bro. So I'm like, that whole Big Bang theory is interesting to me. So I can't really relate, but that's an interesting point you're making.
Yeah, well, for me, I find like in terms of science, like true science and true spirituality are pointing to the same thing. But you got science over here saying, oh, life's meaningless, it's purposeless, it's random, and it's it's just evolution, random evolution. And then there's, oh no, it's all creation. It's just some dude in the sky pulled out a rib from Adam, and there was a woman. Like, neither of those, to me, they're pointing away from the truth. True science and true spirituality pointing into what's called creative evolution. So consciousness created the universe so it could manifest itself and experience itself, and that's what human beings are in essence. And so at the moment of the Big Bang, all the energy, so this is the law of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics is the law of conservation, that energy can be neither created nor destroyed, it only can transform. And so all the energy that exists at the point of the Big Bang, that means it's still present now. And so essentially, the particles that we're made up of, Trey, are as old as time. They've just taken on a new form. Right? If you got all the matter of every single human being, right, and we put it in one superposition, it would fit into the space of a sugar cube. So what does that tell us? That we're more energy than we are actual physicality. But we get caught in this illusion that just because it's you know, it's hard, and like this thing behind me is hard. Like if we look into quantum physics, it's all just energy. It's all just vibrational energy vibrating at different densities. And so that's what we're made of. And so everything in humanity is, you know, in this state of pure consciousness, and it's timeless, spaceless, chargeless, massless. It's moving into form and from form. And if you go and ask a quantum physicist what's light, they'll give you that exact same answer. If you go and ask a theologian what's God, they'll give you that exact same definition, that it's timeless, spaceless, chargeless, massless. It's moving into form, moving out of form. And so that's what we are in our true nature. But the masses have all been programmed to be caught up in this materialistic world. And so to the soul, you realize nothing's ever missing. But to the senses, something's always missing.
Yeah, so now I actually talk a lot about that, like detaching, basically having this understanding that we're spiritual beings, detaching from emotions, the mind, the body, like knowing we are not that. So I do talk about that.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
This quantum physics. So quick question for you, because this whole idea of quantum physics keeps coming up, and I just haven't really dived into it. But I know once I do that, it's gonna bring even more. I guess I'll be able to verbalize things a lot better because, you know, getting that kind of information. So what would you say for someone who's watching this, who's interested in quantum physics, like understanding, you know, how we're all energy, stuff like that? What is like a good, I guess I would say, yeah, a good book that kind of gives you a good foundation on how we are, you know, someone gave me a word, but electromagnetic beings, I think that's the word
Right.
someone say.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
what goes into it?
Spontaneous Evolution is a good one.
Okay.
Spontaneous Evolution is a really, really incredible book about everything we've kind of just talked about here. It's a little bit, goes a lot into biology. It's very, it shows how we're in these four paradigms right now, these four major paradigms that most people operate under unconsciously. The fact that we're random, you know, and we're random, meaningless, you know, beings. It's just popped up here, and it's all random evolution. That there has been seeded into the mass consciousness, and we all believe that life is just this meaningless thing, and that's why most people are out getting pissed on the weekend. Have you ever had that conversation with someone who's not awake? They're completely asleep, and they're like, yeah, life's just about having fun. You know, and they're just getting drunk, they're just boozing up, they've got no vision for their life. They just believe that life's meaningless, and we just evolved here randomly, and they're nihilistic about life, and there's no meaning behind it. Doesn't matter. Like there's people out there who believe that, and that's because that's not their original thought. That's not what they've always truly believed, but it's what's been programmed into the mass consciousness. Another one is scientific materialism, that, you know, only what you see is what's real. And this is another one that disempowers humanity. For instance, a really, really cool example of this is that the masters who've mastered their life, they believe something before they see it. So you've seen it. So Conor McGregor is a perfect example when he goes, what's it like to win the belt again? Have you seen that interview where he's like, oh, what's it like to win the belt again, McGregor? And he's like, I've been here before. I've seen it so many times before. I've seen it. I've been here. I've visualized. Like, he's pretty much saying, he's been there. He's visualized it. He experienced it. He's breathed it. He's heard the crowd. He's seen the crowd. He's felt the crowd. He's been there so many times. So he believed it before he's seen it. But the masses wait they believe it when they see it.
No doubt, bro. All right, cool, brother. So I think we could end it on that. I really appreciate you.
Echoey.
Huh?
Hopefully it's not all echoey like last time.
Oh yeah, that would, man. Hopefully not. So yeah, bro. I really appreciate you packing in so much value in such a short period of time. Like, I'm not joking, bro. I'm gonna rewatch this and take notes and stuff because I think this is powerful stuff. Like I reverse engineered how I basically like got to a place where I feel like I'm really grounded in my masculinity, and I feel like I have a lot of confidence, and I was not like this at all, bro.
Yeah.
So I'm reverse engineering, and I see that a lot of it is getting clear on my purpose. Like once that happened, that's when I kind of just started going. You know what I mean? And I just kind of let go of anybody that's on some dumb shit. I'm like, okay, see you later. I can't be friends with you. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing here, going after my purpose. And then I started connecting with other people who are on their purpose, like you and others. And life just is amazing, bro. Like I wake up every day and I'm excited. You know what I mean? I'm inspired. I can't wait for the next challenge. You know what I mean? It's because
Yes.
of having on your purpose. Like you're not just going around in circles trying to figure shit out. Like you have that clarity, so you could put your energy, forward. Like it goes forward, and you're making some shit happen. So I think this is a very valuable presentation. So I appreciate you coming on. Any lasting thoughts? Anything you want to say before we end it?
So if anyone's resonated with this, I would encourage you to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out and we can have a chat, and I can show you on a conversation how you can apply the purpose activation system to your life and use that 3-step process that I created so that you can get really, really clear on what your purpose is. So you wake up with clarity every single day with where you're going, you're grateful for where you're headed, and you're present to, what it actually is that truly fulfills you, and you go out and you do something meaningful and purposeful and make a difference in the world. And that also, again, we didn't really get going deep into this on this call, but that's what ultimately draws in, incredible women into your life who are on that same frequency. I don't know about you. When I was lost in my purpose, I was attracting women who were lost, who were just wanted, meaningless sex, because that's where I was at. And, it was good at the time and great, but then you realize, like, holy shit, there's a void here. There's something missing. I'm like, and you're trying to make up for the emptiness in your life. You're trying to make up for the unfulfillment with, validation from women and meaningless sex. And it gets to this point where it's like, all right, I've mastered this part of my life with women. Now I want to actually attract quality women who are going to help inspire, who are going to, help me fulfill my mission and fulfill what I'm here to do. Where I can share and bounce ideas and we can get creative with each other. They don't have to like literally be, working for you or something, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's true, man. That's true. I noticed, like when you get clear on your purpose, you become more grounded in your masculinity. So you attract. For me, I noticed that you attract more. This is my experience. You attract more submissive women. At least this.
That's a benefit.
Because when you know your purpose, like you become more dominant, you become more masculine. So it only makes sense that you would attract submissive women, unless you set the intention like, oh, I want to attract an alpha female. Then okay, you'll attract that. But naturally, by my purpose, I naturally started attracting more submissive women who are looking for leadership. Like not to say they don't have a purpose, but they see me on my purpose, and that inspires them to maybe go into their purpose or maybe just help me with mine.
Yeah, I get you. And it's like, when you live in your purpose, you attract high quality women. And that's been my experience. And also, I've been in that stage where I was, attracting women who, where they were very submissive, and I got to dominate. And I've always kind of been the dominant kind. Like I've never been submissive when it comes to women or in the bedroom or anything like that. But then what now my intention is to attract women who are conscious, they're awake, they're aware, they're intelligent, they're driven, they have like their own businesses, and whilst they're they're very much in their thing, like being able to have that someone who's on that same frequency and same vibe and understands where you're at, and you can be like, all right, this is where I'm headed with my business, and you can bounce ideas off each other. And it's fucking powerful, man. Like to have people like that. And then now, for instance, I've got these three incredible women who are conscious, awake, and aware, and I've like what would you call it? Pre-qualify them in a way where it's like, are you into exploring women? Do you want to explore with other women? They're like, yes. And so now we're having these conversations, and I'm like, oh yeah, so such and such said she's interested in meeting you, and such said she wants to catch up. And so now we're having these conversations where we're going to have these, you know, potential three-ways and start exploring that realm of things where these women now I get to be the, I guess the opportunity for these women to explore with other women because that's what they want to do, and I'm just the one, you know, getting them to meet up and hang out, and I get to facilitate that and then fucking dominate both of them.
But that's amazing, bro. That's inspiring, bro. I'm pretty sure somebody's really gonna want to get clarity on their purpose after hearing that, bro.
Yeah, totally.
Yo, I appreciate you coming on, bro. I appreciate you giving your time, putting out so much value for the fellas, and yeah, but let's stay in touch, bro. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. I appreciate you.
You're welcome, brother. Likewise, man. Thanks for the invite, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, bro. Peace.
Later.